We're back, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. So, let's jump right in.
Something was brought to our attention by Sarah, our producer.
Yeah, I just want to read this really quickly. This is a new feeling for me, for us to get the drop on something, because we've noticed that we were just sitting here having a production meeting watching ESPN yesterday, and the three of us, were sitting here talking about this thing that I'm about to read, and we didn't see any of it up on the TV.
No, and it's weird. It is a developing story. Nothing is set in stone yet, and maybe the reason why people aren't talking about it is because nothing really has happened yet. But no one has mentioned it, and
Right.
it's kind of strange to us.
So a report from, not a report, but an article from the Washington Post says, the Justice Department unsealed indictments this week accusing 12 former NFL players of making nearly $4 million in fraudulent claims from the Gene Upshaw NFL Player Health Reimbursement Account Plan, which is a private plan carved out of the collective bargaining agreement between team owners and players. So allegedly, this is what happened. Basically the whole thing is set up kind of like a mafia scheme.
Mm-hmm.
It involved two ringleaders, which are former NFL players Robert McCune and Corell Burkhalter, who tried to get reimbursement equipment that wasn't for doctor-approved medical needs, but they wanted to claim that it was, so that they could get their money back for buying things like cryotherapy tanks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
To do this, they created official-looking letterheads. They faked doctor's notes, and sometimes they had doctor's notes from forged doctor's notes, but coerced actual doctors into signing them, or forged applications or things like that.
And just to fill in that, there's a statement out there that has said I don't go to the doctor because I'm afraid of what they're going to tell me. It's literally, you can't blame this passive destruction. You know what I mean?
I think so, yeah.
Or you can't, it is passive destruction. You can't say that. It's a very complicated situation. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, so the two players, McCune and Burkhalter, sometimes worked on behalf of other former NFL players that were looking to get in on this. The biggest name on this list is former NFL running back Clinton Portis. Although he claims that he knew nothing that he was doing was wrong. So he claimed, total, I had nothing to do with it. The ringleaders would sometimes call the company or the fund, or Cigna, which is the healthcare company that organizes the funds for it, and they would try to impersonate these other guys, these other NFL players, to find out the status of their claims. So over $4 million of false claims were put in.
Of quote, false claims.
Right.
Yeah.
But just over $3 million were paid out.
That's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So of the 12 players, 8 of them were like, yeah, okay, you got me. That's fine. And then surrendered when the FBI came knocking on their doors. And 4 of them were like, what? And so they were arrested. 4 of them were like, wait, what are you talking about? But, the charges in total include healthcare fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at the moment.
It's a big, weird situation, particularly because now the FBI is involved, and
which is strange, because the FBI doesn't usually go after $1 million fraud schemes.
Right.
They usually go after the $1 billion fraud schemes.
Right. It's really, I'm wondering if part of this is happening because of it's a great headline. It's a real spiffy headline.
Especially if, things come to fruition where, nothing's been proven yet.
Right.
But if anybody's charged or whatever, this is huge.
Right. It is a huge deal, and that's why I'm very shocked that no one is talking about it. It's also, you look at kind of the implications of this. Why does this matter?
Right.
Why do we care? Obviously, these players make millions of dollars every year, and the fact that they don't want to pay for these medical quote unquote needs that they have, which might be valid, but also were not prescribed by a doctor.
They being the league.
Yes.
After these players have retired from the league.
Right. So, but the players, they don't want to pay for it, so they're trying to use this fund to pay for it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And it's a weird situation that you're put in, because you see a lot of these guys when they come out of college football programs, they get like degrees in business or whatever, because you do have to have a plan of how to use your money. And
well, the whole idea for a business degree is that you're trying to promote your own business being a football player after football is over.
Exactly.
You need to find a way to make money on yourself. And
right.
That's what the business degrees are for.
But the reality is, this Gene Upshaw fund, it's not this unlimited amount of money that exists in here to take care of players and their families, by the way. Mm-hmm. Their families are included in this after they're done. It's kind of their job to do that. It's truly for people who are facing like diagnosed medical hardship. Mm-hmm. And which means that this crazy equipment that they're ordering, it could be taking away from someone else.
Right. We read a report yesterday that there are 20,000 people who take from the Upshaw Fund.
Right.
It's a lot of people.
Right. And by the way,
which is players and families included.
Right. By the way, much of this information was from the Washington Post, so I want to put that out there too. But these guys felt like they needed this equipment, and so as a result are taking away from this fund. And on top of that, there are the implications of what happens now, not just to these players, because these are 12 very individual cases that I'm sure will be handled all on individual bases.
I don't know.
This is fun. Words
English,
are hard.
English are hard.
English are hard. But beyond that, now we look at what the possibilities are with this fund. And if this fund is no longer, if that's what we're looking at here, because clearly, I mean, you can't just blame these players. There's probably something in this system that is flawed, either in explaining to them what their rights are to using this fund, or just the way that historically, because I'm sure this has happened before on a much smaller basis. Like, players need, I mean, people who put their bodies in danger for years on end later in life need things, and I get that. But what happens when this fund goes under? 80,000 people have their, I'm sorry? 20,000 people have their own welfare at risk. And that sucks, because 12 guys decided to do this. And some of them probably didn't know what they were doing, but it's very sad.
It's basically the 1% afflicting the other 99% who are just, innocent bystanders who actually, need things like this.
Right.
I have a couple of thoughts.
Okay.
So I'm wondering why the guys felt that they needed equipment like this. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe the wording is just, too complex for me. So it sounds to me like these guys were buying their own medical equipment, like cryotherapy banks or whatever, and
turning in the receipts.
Just turning in the receipts.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they were doing. They were just trying, even though...
That's what it sounds like to me, too.
Okay, cool. So I'm wondering, where is the support from the NFL on this? Why, what kind of support did the NFL not give these players to make them feel like they had to do this?
So,
and if that's not a thing, is it straight up okay, so we're really just in this for the money? Because then that makes those 12 people really shitty. So
this fund, this Gene Upshaw fund, works with the NFLPA.
Right.
We do know that. The NFLPA obviously does I guess nowadays you can argue if they're doing a good job of taking care of current players in the system. And the Gene Upshaw Fund is specifically for after they've retired. I'm less worried about what the NFL has to do with it. and more concerned about the way that the people who manage this fund operate and the way that they explain it to the players, because it doesn't sound, I mean, honestly, first off, they were able to figure all of this out between these 12 guys because they had no idea what they were doing.
No,
they left a paper they left an electronic paper trail, essentially.
Right. Yes.
And like with they weren't hiding anything. Like, I can, text my guy and be like, hey, can I buy some weed, or use like a different like name for that? They didn't even try. It was basically just saying, I'm buying some weed from you, like that kind of thing. And it's like they probably, honestly,
I get it.
While it looks like these two guys are conspirators, they there's a strong likelihood that they had no idea what the hell they were doing.
Right.
In the sense of, like,
or at least everybody else except for those two guys who ran the thing, McCure and Burkhalter.
Right.
McCune and Burkhalter.
Yeah, but even then, like, if you know you're going to do something that you probably shouldn't be doing, you should probably be a little more careful about it. Maybe they thought that, obviously, and also, if you're forging doctor's notes and doing that kind of thing, like, that's wrong.
Yeah,
it's illegal.
Course.
But
sure. Yes, it is.
And impersonation is wrong. At the same time, they probably had no idea what these implications were.
No, probably not.
Someone probably needed to tell them.
Probably. I feel like things are just only going to get worse if things go any farther than this. If people get convicted of fraud,
right?
Yeah, it's going to have major implications. But here's my other thought: is that the NFL probably isn't going to do a damn thing about it.
Why would they?
I don't know. I don't think they would. They would probably claim that 12 people made a stupid mistake and just continue on about their business.
I don't even think it's their job to do anything about it. It's the people who manage this fund.
But I do think it's the NFL's job to take care of their players.
Of course.
Even after they retire. Considering, all these players that have CTE, with all the concussions and things like that. And it just seems to me like the NFL's not doing anything about it. Take care of players after they retire.
But I'm wondering, well, that's what this fund is for. I'm wondering if, just to play devil's advocate here, why was there a need to go to such lengths as impersonating people and forging doctor's notes and doing all of this? Was it because they didn't feel like they were getting the help that they needed? Because in that case, your point is absolutely 100% valid. But it seems to me like, on paper, they have plenty of resources.
Sure.
They just need to go and do the right thing and get actual doctor's notes and try to make these claims properly. If they were having problems making these claims and getting what they needed, then that's a completely different story.
Well, the NFL's made some strides to, protect player safety. I don't think it's nearly, as far as players that are injured go, I don't think it's broad enough. They brought in outside counsels for concussions and things like that. But most of the time, teams and owners will do whatever they can to keep their best players on the field because they want to win and they want to make money.
Of course.
So if these players they're getting one opinion from a doctor that works for the team versus getting another opinion from a doctor who is independent, I think that's a problem.
Sure, but again, we're looking at two different groups of people here, and I feel like you're staying very centered on current players right now, when the reality is afterwards, like, if there is maybe there is a list of doctors that they are allowed to see to prescribe this medication or whatever, and in that case it's different, but they can go see whoever they want.
Well, I'm saying that they need to take better care of their players while they're playing, so, and by that I mean like giving actual, like, accurate medical information, and not bias. It's like, okay, rub some dirt on it, Johnny, and go play, so that the players can know to take better care of themselves and take the care that they need, so that they don't ultimately have to rely on things like this after they retire.
I understand what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And we all know, God, like, when I broke my ankle a couple months ago, like, I went to 2 different doctors who were like non-weight bearing, use a scooter, use crutches. It was a mess for a few weeks. And then, of course, I went to an athletic doctor who said I was fine and could walk on it. We all know what these athletic doctors have the ability to say, to kind of brush off an injury if it doesn't actually need to be cared for.
That's exactly my point, though.
Or not cared for as well as it could be.
Right.
And I absolutely understand what you're saying in that regard. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. It absolutely, in the future, it can be changed. But now, what do we do about these players now? Like, I mean,
hope that the fund doesn't get, hit with, fraud charges.
Yeah.
Because then if
it doesn't seem like the fund is in trouble right now, but they should
not yet.
But they should absolutely be on the lookout.
They and those other 20,000 people that get funds from this foundation,
right,
should be on notice.
Yeah.
Because it's the actions of a few that are going to affect the realities of many.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem.
Absolutely.
That's my biggest takeaway, is that these 12 guys who, whether or not they wanted money or whatever, because they bought these horse tranquilizing drugs on the black market and then want to get the receipts for the money just to get the money, are going to screw out 20,000 people who actually need it because they were selfish about it.
Right.
So I guess that's what I'm. The why is just kind of what I'm trying to wrap my head around here.
Well,
I don't understand what the motive is here.
I think it's really interesting also to note that a lot of the players who are allegedly involved in this were former Washington Redskins players.
Okay.
It's interesting to see how maybe this is just one example from like one organization of this kind of thing, or maybe there was an issue and a lot of them come from the same time range as well. So maybe you can look back on who the medical staff was at that time and have someone a little bit more to blame. To your point, I think it's a really interesting thing too. I mean, the healthcare fraud that they're accusing, like Joe Horn is one of them that they're accusing, which is it's so weird to see some of these names.
Yeah.
And guys who made pretty good money back when they were playing.
Right.
The players recruited this, and I quote the Washington Post, the players recruited others into the scheme by offering to submit false claims in exchange for kickbacks and bribes that ranged up to $10,000. So that would also imply that these players couldn't submit their own claims for some reason.
Okay.
There are a lot of holes that we kind of, again, like I said, developing story.
It's a baby story.
And we all need to, spend some more time reading and figuring it out.
And that's probably why it hasn't broken on TV yet, because it for now, it's extremely complicated, and we don't really know the motive. And until they can dumb it down for a regular American audience to consume over TV, I don't know that we're going to hear anything about it.
Yeah.
Right now.
But it's something to keep your ears peeled for and your eyes peeled for.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a really interesting and scary thing, and obviously just we all just hope that other thousands of others don't have to suffer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
good.
I'm good.
Cool. If you have thoughts on this, if anybody out there has thoughts on this,
or additional information,
or questions, comments, whatever, please shoot us an email. You can find us at andrewankata@gmail.com, or reach out to all of us on all of our social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The handle is at UFR Vodcast with a V. It's a wild story, and I'm interested to hear what happens in the future. Because this has enormous potential to be catastrophic for a lot of people.
Yeah, the implications are pretty extreme. So
yeah,
hopefully we get more information soon, and it would be really nice if it wasn't so. If the issue became a little bit more black and white.
Right.
So
yeah,
we'll see.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, fantasy football playoffs are in full swing.
Mm-hmm.
Someone over there made the playoffs miraculously.
Hi.
It was you.
It was me.
And I'm on the verge of winning my league for the second time, so we're going to go ahead and talk about that.
And we want to, of course, in the spirit of fantasy football playoffs ending as well, we want to reflect on what we've learned this year.
That's
so
right.
Stay tuned.